Hello, everyone. I'm Mystery.
And I am Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we are the duality of man. And just for today, we are the duality of Kens, apparently.
Yeah, today we're talking about the Barbie movie. Now, I haven't seen it. I've just seen a lot of reviews on it. But from what I've heard, Ken is apparently the true hero of the film.
Yeah, kind of. See, the upshot is this. It is in the same category. The movie is in the same category as Velma or Daniel Kibblesmith's New Warriors, in that it takes feminism to so much its logical conclusion that it actually kind of horseshoe theories its way into being a men's rights movie. Unironically.
I've heard it compared to Starship Troopers, where the director was trying to say one thing, but unintentionally made it kind of based.
Kind of, or maybe in the like Demolition Man sense of like this seems like very superficial. This seems like very superficial pablum in the context in which it was originally released, but in 20 years or so, it's going to be considered a red pill moment for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. So let's start talking about it. So, how does the film begin?
Okay, so the film begins with a flat a parody of 2001: A Space Odyssey, wherein little girls are playing with baby dolls, and the narrator voice, the rather excellent narrator voice of Helen Mirren, tells us, in a long time ago, in an epoch far, far away, etc. Uh, Little girls only had Barbie or only had baby dolls to play with, and then there came a new icon, and then we have a large statue of Barbie, um, acting as the surrogate monolith. And upon being awestruck by this vision of Barbie, the little girls violently beat their baby dolls to death. Unironically, like like it's very hard not to see it as a we're trying to do the most G-rated infanticide in history,
I mean, they
and
are.
then it go ahead.
I mean, the people making this are modern women. If there's one thing modern women aren't afraid to do,
It's apparently beat surrogate children's heads in. Apparently, just
well, now
which
they're attempting
again,
to.
I think this is supposed to be a fuck yeah sisterhood moment, but it's another case of it plays feminism so straight that it actually ends up showing exactly what's wrong with feminism.
Well, no, I can read it one way in that Barbie has been shown as having many different careers, many different jobs like pilot, doctor, what have you, that kind of thing, right?
Yes,
And she's also portrayed as being an aspirational figure.
yeah,
So what do the little girls have to do in order to be like the aspirational figure? They have to get rid of the babies.
because motherhood is in no way aspirational, as in it, and is in fact oppressive. I can't speak today for some fucking reason.
That's what I immediately heard. That's what I got out of the scene whenever you described it just now.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's the sort of cold open of the movie, okay? And then we cut to Barbie World, which is essentially an alternate dimension, kind of similar to the world of the Lego movie or the world of the Emoji movie, as though we didn't know that the movie was copying a bunch of people's homework. Um, but it's a world where every iteration of Barbie and every iteration of Ken, and also Ken's friend Alan, who is the one non-Ken male in the movie,
Is he
or in this
is he
dimension anyway.
soy?
It's it's Michael Cera, but he's the more he's on the spectrum of Michael Cera performances. It's more endearing and less annoyingly hipstery.
Giving him like a 25 on the soy meter.
Anyway, let's continue. So in this world, every Barbie and Ken are like sympathetically linked to some person or persons out there in the real world who are playing with that particular iteration of Barbie. So you have like traditional Barbie, who is Margot Robbie's character, who is the like main character, and also like the original iteration of Barbie. Then you've got all the specialized Barbie. You've got President Barbie, Princess Barbie, etc.,
Hold
construction
on.
worker Barbie, and so on.
Let me ask you something. Now, in the real world, there's thousands of copies of each of these dozens of iterations of Barbies. How are they going to be linked to a single version? I mean, there's probably a bunch of different kids playing with these dolls in a bunch of different ways
I
all at the same time.
I think it's supposed to be a Gestalt thing where it's like the sort of overarching pattern of how they're being played with. I think. Um,
So kind of like a collective unconscious of toys.
or like a tulpa, yeah, like this is the tulpa of the original Barbie, or the Barbie without modifiers. This is the tulpa of Princess Barbie. This is the tulpa of Mermaid Barbie, etc. Anyway, so in Barbie world, it is a blissful and utopian matriarchy, okay, wherein every Ken is more or less a second class citizen who is there mostly for the enjoyment of and attempted pleasing of their respective Barbies.
Sounds like a society run by women.
And the jobs do not, unsurprisingly, display any of the, difficulty of working or jobs. But the jobs and the modifiers that the various Barbies have are considered like prestige things, to the point that sometimes other Barbies will dismissively refer to the main Barbie as stereotypical Barbie. But point being, the point I wanted to make in relation to how this is kind of a stealth men's rights movie is this movie sees working as a privilege and as a prestige status thing. So Kens are completely locked out of the prestige status option. And this movie actually, unironically, okay, I'm gonna have a hard time explaining this for someone who hasn't seen it, but I will try anyway. Um, so the movie thinks it's pulling the gender switcheroo card. It thinks it's saying, what if we in Barbie world treated men like women who have been treated throughout history? But what it actually ends up doing is being an actually fairly accurate portrayal of male vulnerability, because Ken, of course, defines his worth based on what he is able to do, how much what he is able to do is valued by people around him, and especially the approval of his nominated Barbie.
So he wants purpose and people that depend on and appreciate him.
Especially his Barbie, who I remind you, in the context of the movie, these characters were literally made for each other.
All right, here's one thing that I grasp on. Like they say that in this world, like jobs are supposed to be a prestigious thing. Well, jobs aren't meant to be prestigious. They're a necessary part of
They're a
life.
difficult thing that honestly people would rather avoid. Yes, I know.
They are a burden that you have to endure in order to survive. Like men don't consider jobs to be prestigious unless it's something like a doctor or a lawyer. 80% of men, if they could, would flip off their boss and quit today if they were able to.
Yep. But that is of course not what is portrayed here, and of course there are no sewage worker Barbies. First and foremost, I think because no such product exists, which is in and of itself telling. But point being, it's all the prestige jobs, and the only reason construction worker Barbie is there, I'm guessing, is because partially gender switcheroo and partially girl women can be as strong as men. Da 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 da. But in any case, that's not even the main plot. So we set up the totally not oppressive at all to Ken's matriarchy that is perfect Barbie world. And as it turns out, someone in the real world begins playing with stereotypical, traditional, original Barbie, um, and having what effectively amounts to a midlife crisis. And this is so anathema to the rest of the Gestalt that.
Wait, how old is the person?
Hmm?
How old is a person playing with Barbie to have like a?
Well, we'll get to that because it's set up as a twist later on in the movie, even though it really shouldn't be a twist because it's kind of obvious from the word go. Um, so anyway, it's so anathema to how Barbie normally functions that she starts experiencing for the very first time mortality salience, as in she starts thinking about death and aging and dying. And because the world of the Barbie dimension literally revolves around the experiences or the whims of Barbie, including but not limited to the laws of physics, when she starts experiencing mortality salience, her body actually starts replicating it in the form of flat feet and cellulite.
Wait, question. You said that each Barbie was a reflection of all the people that played with them.
Yes,
How is this one person's emotions overriding literally everyone else's?
because it's so anathema to Barbie ness that it's like a irritating grain of sand inside an oyster. She can't help but picking at it. And mind you, that's my attempt to make this make some kind of straightforward screenwriting sense. I'm not sure if the writers thought it through that much, but I'm choosing to help them because of all the problems that this movie has. We can't get bogged down into the like mechanical logistics too much. So anyway, traditional Barbie is experiencing mortality, salience, and aging and adult things for the first time, and it is harshing her mellow so badly that it's actually causing the laws of physics in Barbie world to go haywire. And so the rest of the Barbies insist on her going to see Weird Barbie, played by Kate McKinnon, who is basically all the Barbie that the girl's brother gets a hold of and draws on with crayon or cuts her hair weird or basically goes Sid from Toy Story with it.
Yeah, yes, I remember Cynthia from the Rugrats.
That is, yeah, or Angelica. That is Weird Barbie. She is the Barbie who is the sort of insert for all the damaged or traumatized Barbies. But because of being damaged and traumatized, she kind of becomes meta aware and therefore basically functions as a quasi oracle for the Barbies. Um, and so Weird Barbie tells traditional Barbie that um, she essentially explains the setup. We are all bound to the people playing with us, and so clearly someone who's playing with you, traditional Barbie, is going through something, and you should go to the real world and help her. And so she does, and Ken um, is actually being mocked by the other Kens because they know how little regard traditional Barbie has for traditional Ken. And so Ken takes it upon himself to help traditional Barbie by stowing away in her car that she uses to drive to the real world.
Wait,
Uh,
hold on. How one? how is there a portal between the world of dolls and the real world? And two, aren't Barbie and Ken supposed to like each other?
No, not as it is presented here. Again, this is a movie that is so feminist it comes out the other side of the wormhole and becomes men's rightsy. For you see, Barbies view Kens as means to an end and accessories to make themselves feel good and to validate them. And if a Ken is bad at doing either of those two things, he is basically unpersoned and considered a nuisance. And
Sounds like
and
another
it is
movie
at this
scene.
point that I turn to the camera and say, "Gee, who does that remind everyone of?"
I mean, that is the most accurate thing about this movie so far.
Yeah. Again, it's and just you wait until the contrast of when we get to the nominal real world, which is of course infiltrated with the patriarchy of feminist imagining. And then I point out that is how bass backwards this movie is. The movie is more insightful when it is creating a deliberately absurd parody of the real world than when it is trying to portray the real world. But that's neither here nor there. Barbie goes to the real world through a series of dimension hopping side missions, and they wind up in Venice Beach, and then she realizes Ken is there, and she is quite annoyed that he is there because she doesn't want to deal with him right now. Um, but he's there, so she essentially is like, "Hey, come up, tag along. Why not? It's not that important." And as soon as Barbie and Ken walk down the street, someone unironically slaps Barbie on the ass in front of what is very, very, very clearly her boyfriend, nominally, mind you. And it is at this point the movie lays on the patriarchy so thick you could
Where,
not cut it with a knife, for your knife would go dull before you hacked all the way through.
where in the real world are they?
Venice Beach,
Where's that?
California.
Was it a homeless drug addict that smacked her on the ass?
No, it was just a nominal like beach dude, bro.
All right, this is California. I don't believe this.
I again, they are better at being insightful when they're trying to be absurd than when they're actually trying to be insightful.
Also, I heard a very funny story about this, about around this scene specifically. It was that while they were in the process of filming, people were coming up to Ryan Gosling and saying hello, shaking his hands, and he was like interacting with fans of his. But apparently, nobody went up and talked to Margot Robbie, and there were people upset about this because she was being ignored. So in the movie, you're supposed to be upset because some guy smacked her on the ass. In the real world, you're supposed to be upset because she was ignored.
That is correct. Yes. Once again, the movie is at its most insightful when it is trying to be absurd, and at its most absurd when it is trying to be insightful. But so anyway, Barbie and Ken get clothes, um, because they realize they need a change of clothes, and for some reason they go for a cowboy getup, which would have made more sense if this movie was if this part of the real world was set in Texas. But I digress. They just felt like a costume change, but because in Barbie world money is basically meaninless, they don't realize they have to pay for things. And so they get thrown out of the store because or rather, they run away from the clerk when he says, "Oh, by the way, you have to pay for that, right?" And so, through a series of similar shenanigans, they eventually get arrested. And in the course of this, the evil corporate board of the company Mattel, um, headed by Will Ferrell, who is basically playing a cross between President Business from the Lego Movie and Kawatu from Zoolander, um, find out that one of the Barbies has crossed the boundary from Barbie world into the real world, and that's a really not so good, very good idea.
How
Um,
does he even know this place exists? Is like is a toy corporation aware of interdimensional travel?
yes, they realized that when Barbie was created as a product, it basically created a pocket dimension, and so part of their corporate duties all this time has been to like safeguard the pocket dimension to make sure no one realizes
Wait,
that it's
Barbie
a
was
thing.
created like in what, like the
50,
1950s, I believe. How the hell
50,
did they know that?
59.
None, no, it's so dumb.
I it's literally like we have an entire secret division at this toy company to prevent people from wandering into a random pocket dimension that we accidentally created in the 1950s. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
the, the Men in
yeah.
Black secretly work for Hasbro.
I apparently apparently like every presumably every IP in this universe just has its own pocket dimension, or anything linked to a product has its own pocket dimension. So, like, there's probably a GI Joe dimension out there somewhere or something. I don't.
I
Anyway,
look forward to the day when Cobra Commander invades New York.
I sadly I think a Saturday morning cartoon villain would be less traumatizing than real world terrorists, but never mind. Um, But point being, so the evil corporate board of Mattel, headed by Will Ferrell, figures out that a Barbie has crossed from Barbie world into the real world, and of course they go out of their way to track her down. So they bail her out and bring her back to the corporate headquarters. And of course Ken is also there because he doesn't know what to do with himself other than that, and he loves his Barbie because he once again is the most sympathetic character in the movie and a pretty damn solid surrogate for like male vulnerability, actually. Um, so anyway, they take Barbie and Ken to the evil corporate mastermind played by Will Ferrell, and Barbie throughout this entire experience has become kind of traumatized by the real world because she hates it because this is of course not the real world. This is the real world through the lens of patriarchy of feminist imagining, and she is hating not being the matriarchal mistress of everything. um, and so she tells them, at this point, I just want to go home. I want to help I want to help the little girl I'm supposed to help and go home. And so Will Ferrell says, okay, so there's this. So we have a portal back to Barbie world that's in a giant Barbie box, and so start they start winding her up like she's a life size action figure into this box to send her home. And she, of course, realizes halfway through this that being forcefully stuck in a box is not a good thing. And so she tricks them by telling them she needs to go to the bathroom, which is especially funny when you consider that it's been established by this point. One of the comedic banter bits I skipped over for the sake of sanity and for the sake of summarizing the plot expediently. Neither Barbies nor Kens have any genitalia whatsoever because they are, homunculi basically. Um,
Okay, but about the box thing, wouldn't it just be simpler to put her in the back of a van and drive her to wherever the hell the portal is?
no, because apparently that kind of portal only works the one way until it works differently because we'll need it to in like an act and a half.
It
Um,
works in accordance with the plot.
Basically, the laws of narrative causality change entirely based on because the plot says so. Anyway, so Barbie escapes from the bumbling corporate overlords because the bumbling corporate overlords are bumbling corporate overlords, and she is saved by America Ferrera's character, who is the secretary of evil corporate Mattel. Um, because she is, of course, the one person in the boardroom that actually cares about Barbie. And so when she finds out that Barbie is trying to escape the evil corporate overlord, she helps her. Um, and America Ferrera's character has a daughter who Barbie assumes must be the one playing with her, and therefore making her have this existential crisis. But it turns out that America Ferrera's daughter character hates Barbie, and in fact considers Barbie to be a tool of the patriarchy and extremely, extremely oppressive, and even fascist traditionalist imagery.
How old is this child?
I 14 through 16, somewhere in there, I think.
Well, 14 years old tend to be the time where people try to get, um, unironically, a bit too edgy,
Yeah,
and and they often get political without knowing what the actual hell they're saying.
but mind you, it's supposed to be a truth out of the mouths of babes moment. It's not regarded as, oh, you're being a dismissive little shit. It's regarded as, damn, based 14-year-old.
Yeah, but that's not truth out of the mouths of babes. That
I,
truth
I,
out of the
I,
mouths
I
of
I
babes
know.
is
I'm
like,
just telling you what the movie thinks it's doing. It's once again trying so hard to do the thing it's doing that it's doing the opposite. But I'm trying to explain what the movie is going for. Um, but of course, as it turns out, the twist that is not a twist because everyone saw it coming is the reason why Barbie is having all of these existential crisis thoughts that normally afflict women in their midlife crisis period is because the one playing with Barbie in such a way that it's being an irritant to her Gestalt mind is the middle-aged secretary played by America Ferrera, who bought her daughter a Barbie, thinking that it would be an excuse for them to bond, mother and daughter. But of course, um, the daughter character is even more snarky and irritating than Daria. So she looks at this and is like, "Oh, how dare you try to put me in the traditionalism box?" Um,
okay, first of all, no 14-year-old is playing with a Barbie. And second of all, like, get help. Like,
it it it
if
it,
you're
it, it
unloading your middle-aged insecurities onto a doll, get help. Get
it,
serious
it
professional help. I implore you.
it implied that she got them for her like when she was like 10 or so. So that's not so much of a it's not so much of a clusterfuck. Um, but like you just implied there. So America Ferrera is having her midlife crisis and she is feeling miserable and she considers Barbie to be one of the great things about her childhood. So she ends up playing with the Barbie that she got. She ends up playing with the Barbies that she got her daughter, thinking that it would be a good mother daughter bonding thing, and it wasn't. And in so doing, um, she gives uh, traditional Barbie in Barbie worlds more self awareness than she should have, and therefore existential nightmare. Um, so anyway, in the course of this, Barbie decides that in order to make America Ferrera happy, she needs to take them back to Barbie World um, so she can see how idyllic it is. Now, mind you, around this time, um, Barbie and Ken are having an argument because Barbie just wants to go home, go back to Barbie World, because she is feeling traumatized and scared and everything by the real world. So she tells Ken to go away and make himself useful. Um, and when he does this, while he's by himself exploring the real world, someone asks him what time it is, and he tells them, and the person is understandably grateful for someone telling them what time it is because they need to know what time it is. And Ken realizes this is the first time in forever that someone has asked him to do a thing and was grateful for him doing the thing, and therefore legitimized him by virtue of, yay, I successfully accomplished a thing and was appreciated for said thing. And it is at this point that he essentially wanders off and goes looking for male spaces. He goes looking for essentially how he is represented in this weird real world thing. And he stumbles on a gym, and in the gym they're flicking through a TV or so on and so forth, and he discovers like policemen, soldiers, firefighters, Rocky, etc. And this to Ken is like holy nirvana, because of course men in Barbie world are second class citizens who strive their damnedest to be useful to their Barbies and are dismissed and belittled regardless. Um, and so Ken discovers that in this world, men can be useful and be appreciated for their usefulness. But because this is also a feminist movie, he goes to a library and checks out a bunch of books on patriarchy theory. Which, to be fair, even this isn't exactly a wrong depiction, because there are men who, in absence of any better role models, will pick negative role models just so that they can have some semblance of inherent sentimental self-worth. You know, it'd be better if everyone found their way to the honey badgers, or to uh, like other men's rights advocates, or at least to Jordan Peterson. But in truth, some men will inevitably find their way to people like Andrew Tate or Ruth V. And in so doing, this actually isn't completely retarded. Um, it's still fairly retarded, because that's not how the real world works. The patriarchy theory is a conspiracy theory with no evidence, and if Ken actually was dropped in the real world, he would be able to find positive masculine role models that weren't edgy little shits. But when you're looking for any validation at all, the source of validation you find is one you cling to with all you have. And so he researches a bunch of shit about the patriarchy, and in the process, he decides he is going to take all this knowledge back to Barbie world and tell the other Kens about it. So he goes through the portal, which shouldn't have worked, because um, it was established that you needed the box portal to go from real world to Barbie world, but the movie have just completely dropped that mechanic that it established like 20 minutes ago, but never mind. So anyway, Ken goes back to Barbie world, and America Ferrera, her daughter, and Barbie are also heading back to Barbie world. But of course, by the time Barbie, America Ferrera, and her daughter get to Barbie world, the Kens have successfully taken it over and instituted the Kendom.
Question: does the portal work on some sort of time dilation? Are the universes moving at different speeds of
I
time?
I could not tell you. I
I mean,
think so.
that's gonna be the
My,
fastest coup in history.
well, that's kind of part of the joke, and you will never guess what happens to the Barbies again. Movie becomes accidentally based again, because as soon as the idea of patriarchy is brought up to the Barbies, a lot of them go along with it, because they like the idea of not having to think, and not having the pressure of jobs to deal with. And so basically Ken, who is now a bit of a like Logan Paulish dude bro, because he's internalized the straw man of patriarchy that the movie insisted on him internalizing. Oh, how dare
So
he?
he goes back, creates basically a Tradcon paradise. What happens next?
Um, and then Barbie, America Ferrera, and her daughter show up, and are abjectly horrified that the superior Barbies are being so brainwashed by the Kens. And so, in order to deconvert them, Barbie and America Ferrera both go on diatribes about feminism and the glory of feminism and feminist theory that each last about 5 minutes each. And this is apparently how you deconvert otherwise fairly happy mind you, the Barbies at this point, the Barbies who are taking on the trad wife role basically and kind of serving their Kens, are happier than they've ever actually been,
See,
at least depicted by the movie.
this reminds me about something that I read. It's that like during the rise of the feminist movement in America, like a lot of like it wasn't like all the women like rising up. Most of them were very happy in their marriages until they started going to feminist meetings, and the feminist meetings basically had to like twist their way of thinking and convince them that no, you are actually oppressed. And that's it. And the thing is, if you're actually oppressed, nobody needs to tell you. Like the slaves knew they were oppressed without people telling me. Without
Well,
people telling
okay,
me. The
there is
Irish
an
knew they were
asterisk.
oppressed. The Jews knew they were being oppressed. They didn't need anybody to convince them of that.
Yeah, there is an asterisk there with regards to slaves because a lot of slaves were born into slavery and therefore there
I'm talking
was
about first generation.
kind of a Stockholm syndrome thing. But I get your point. I just for historical accuracy's sake, there is the asterisk there. Um, but yeah. So the Barbies are actually kind of happy with their lives, but along come traditionalist Barbie and America Ferrera. The daughter is mostly just kind of there at this point because she, as already has been established, is utterly dismissive either way. She hates the idea of patriarchy and whatever the fuck Barbie is replacing it with, which she thinks is basically just softcore patriarchy.
Wait,
Anyway,
so it seems like everybody's having a good time until a bunch of unhappy women show up and they're not, so they have to ruin it for everyone.
uh, kind of, yeah. So, so the so Barbie and America Ferrera wake up the other Barbies to how oppressed they are. Never mind that Kens were experiencing this exact same phenomena like 5 seconds ago, but they are immaterial because we say so.
I would
Um,
argue that the Kens had it worse.
yeah, yeah, and but that's the but we will get there because it gets worse. Um, so the Barbies hatch a plan to use the inherent sentimental regard that Kens have for them to distract them from ruling so that they can reinstitute the original constitution of Barbie World. Because the Kens are essentially going through the process of trying to change the constitution and make Barbie World a Kendom forever. Um, so the Barbies, the awakened Barbies, go about using the Ken's sentimental attachment to them and the Ken's inherent desire to please them to basically um, make every Ken jealous of every other Ken, and predictably, it starts a war.
So the
Um,
lesson is manipulate men that genuinely care for you and twist their emotions in order to gain power.
well, I don't know if it's the lesson, but it's certainly the 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 mechanic of the plot. Yes. Um,
These are
and
supposed to
and,
be
and I,
the
I
heroes
will
of the
say the
show.
way Ken's fight is kind of funny because they both fight and have dance offs at the same time, so it's like choreographed martial arts warfare basically. It's dance martial arts warfare, and it's
These are
actually kind
supposed
of
to
funny.
be the good guys. I'm assuming from the movie's point of view, these are supposed to be the good guys.
The Barbies are supposed to be the good guys, yes, and
Why are
and
they
the
doing things that a villain would do?
and the Kens are supposed to be the villains for having one day out of however long this world has existed relative to its own time scale, um, that that has ever existed. Anyway, but point being, so they successfully distract the men by playing with their emotions and then causing a literal goddamn war. As far as we know, the first war to ever exist in this universe, or rather this pocket dimension. Um, and then all the Barbies get together, vote into changing Barbie World back to the way it was, and um, and then the Kens are defeated by their own, essentially their own gynocentrism and or incompetence. Um, if I had a penny for every, again, it's one of those. Are we sure that this is supposed to be the movie's rendition of the real world because it's more accurate to the real world than the nominated real world they're depicting is. So anyway, um, this is where the movie seems to realize that it done fucked up by making Ken the more sympathetic one, because Barbie actually does apologize to him. She doesn't. She doesn't apologize to him in the sense of "I manipulated you and I'm sorry." Though she apologizes to him that um that he she is sorry that he was made for her, and she wishes he could find a way to just be himself and essentially go full MGTOW. And so between the two of them, they come up with the slogan "I'm just Ken," um, and that gives the main Ken the ability to obsess about Barbie just less enough that he can actually have some kind of purpose beyond her. And then you would think in a movie like this the lesson would be, hey, matriarchy and patriarchy are both bad, equality should be the goal. You would think. But the movie shoots that one right in the head, because one of the Kens, after Barbie World has been restored to their version of normal, asks, "Hey, can Kens have some kind of representation here? Can Kens have a seat on the Supreme Court of Barbie World or something?" And and the Barbies decide no, and the reasoning why the answer is no is because Kens will be second class citizens in Barbie World unless and until the patriarchy in the real world is abolished. So basically, we're going to treat you like we think women are treated in the real world. That is the upshot. So Kens continue being second class citizens with the added benefit of now they know they are second class citizens. And the
So it's
only
just mask off. Yes, we're oppressing you.
we will oppress you in the literal terms as long as women are hypothetically disadvantaged in the abstract terms. Yes, that is where they do. So anyway,
So
something I didn't mention something I didn't mention earlier because it wasn't really super related to the plot. Is at one point when Barbie is at the Mattel office, she runs into a woman who is the ghost of Ruth Handler, the woman who created the first Barbie. And so at the end of the movie, she goes to see Ruth Handler again, trying to see if Ruth Handler, her creator, essentially she's talking to her god or her goddess, I suppose. Um, and she asks, "What do I do?" Because I'm not sure how to go on being Barbie now, knowing everything I know about the, again, air quotes, real world, and basically she's been transformed by this experience, so she doesn't know what to do now. And Ruth Handler says she has two options. She can either um, she can either continue on in Barbie world, but that would create an imbalance because Barbies and Kens are supposed to be paired up together, and now not only does Barbie have no interest in in Ken, but because she was merciful to him and gave him the ability to have a spine, which I suppose good for her. Um,
Not with a full spine. It's like a fraction of one.
yeah, but again, because she was not because the writers realized we really need to do something to make Barbie sympathetic to Ken here, otherwise we're fucked. Um, there's now an imbalance because there's a Barbie and a Ken who are in isolation and not a unit. So Ruth Handler gives her the other option of you can decide to become a real person. You can become a human. And you would think Barbie would be traumatized by this because of the aforementioned straw man patriarchy that she has experienced in the quote unquote real world. But no, she accepts it. And she goes home with America Ferrera's character and her daughter. And the movie closes basically on Barbie going to her first gynecologist appointment. Because that is what a woman is. It's not her getting a new career. It's not her becoming the CEO of Mattel because they made a big deal about the fact that Mattel was run mostly by men, even though they were dealing with the product of Barbie. So you would think in a more straightforward version of this, she would go to the real world and become, I don't know, the CEO of Mattel or something, or at least the Barbie consultant for Mattel or something. But no, the movie's be all and end all of womanhood is Barbie becomes human, presumably gets a vagina, and then goes to the the gynecologist as her first step on the road of human womanhood. And that is basically where the movie ends, um except for they make a point about how Barbie is freer now because she no longer has to live up to the standards of feminine perfection. Um and then the narrator kicks in and goes, "We realized that this ending would be more meaningful if we had casted someone less beautiful than Margot Robbie in this role." The joke there being that this movie was originally pitched with Amy Schumer starring in it, and instead we have Margot Robbie because we can't allow beauty standards to hold for even a second, and that's where the movie ends.
Okay, I have a number of comments.
Uh huh.
Our first one about the ending where she chooses to become a woman and stay in the real world. So you're saying she can't live in, I mean, what is essentially an Orwellian utopia, I mean, an Orwellian dystopia, but to her it's her normal world, and she instead wants to stay in the place that traumatized her so much that she can't live in her normal world again, to
Correct.
perhaps experience more trauma and perhaps
Correct.
worse trauma.
Correct.
Okay, so
And of course, Barbie takes the last name Handler and calls herself Barbie, or Barbara Handler, who is actually um, funny little factoid. The reason why Barbie is named Barbie is because Ruth Handler had a daughter named Barbara and a son named Ken, and she basically named the toys after her children.
hmm. All right, now regarding Ken. Now here's what I don't understand. One, uh, she she thought that he would be happier if he had a tiny fraction of a spine. I personally think that both of them would be happier if they would just, learn to be in a relationship where they actually appreciate one another.
There is no such option ever presented.
Okay, and two, after she and the humans leave to stay in the human world permanently, Ken already showed that he can lead a successful revolution and a fairly speedy one at that. What's to stop him from just doing it again?
Uh, he basically is written as subsisting on the tiny fraction of self worth he has now, and totally fine with it. So the lesson is, um, become okay and self-actualized with the idea you're a second-class citizen, basically.
Okay, what about all the other Kens? They were clearly happier. And the thing is, like
And by the way, the Kendom is depicted as dystopian as possible. It still fails to be anything other than a little bit based, but they try to focus on the negative aspects of like dude bro like the most stereotypical dude bro culture you can imagine. Even though like the innocent way that the Kens engage with stuff is so adorable that it becomes endearing again. Like Ken has a thing where he sees in the real world he sees a policeman on a horse, so he just goes, "I understand everything now. The world would be better with patriarchy and horses." And it's so adorable.
I
You can't
mean,
help but
he's
like
not incorrect.
it's like you can't help but feel for the guy because he's just this innocent little teddy bear of a of a person who just really likes horses and like dude bro stuff. It's kind of adorable actually.
Well, just nothing in this movie makes sense. I mean, instead of having society made by the Kens where everyone is happy because the Barbies get to stay home and the Kens get to go out and build the society and have purpose and come home to women who appreciate them. You instead have one side who is happy and another side who is now openly oppressed, like just full on mask off.
Yeah, we will allow you equal citizenship as and when the abstract patriarchy that we're pretty sure exists for women in the real world is abolished.
Well, here's the thing, though.
Maybe.
The patriarchy does not actually exist. It just exists in the minds
Yeah.
of angry women,
Yeah,
so they have something to complain at.
it's not a thing, and no amount of convincing them it's not a thing will ever convince them it's not a thing. So yeah,
This will continue forever.
yep. And again, I'm having a really hard time not seeing that. Again, it's so honest about what feminism is that it accidentally becomes a men's rights movie. Like it's almost on par with Joker in terms of the accidental men's rightsness of it, I think. And it all stems from the fact that what the feminists think is real is literally the exact opposite of what happens to be real. And what feminists think men and women's roles are is pretty much the exact opposite of what their roles are. So when they try to play the gender switcheroo card, i.e., let's treat men like women and women like men, it doesn't work because you wind up actually putting your initial premise is inverted. So by inverting your already inverted premise, you actually got it kind of right, somewhat.
Yeah, it's funny because I watch some of these podcasts where women talk about how dissatisfied they are and how they want men who, are strong, who are confident, who
The
make more
real
money.
man card. Yeah.
Yeah, who make more money than them, who can lead, and it just makes me think: you want the patriarchy, you want it, you're just not allowed to say it. You know,
Well, it's also, but it's not because they want it both ways. They want a man who makes more than they do, but they also want abject abject control over him and abject moral authority over him at all circumstances. Which is why they always get pissed off when they chase after the high value, top 20% men, the nominal real men, and they're the only men who don't have a sense of empathy because in order to be at the top of the top of the hierarchy, some of those men are going to be sociopaths who use people. But because they don't see any male human who doesn't have, the six sixes as a real man, TM, they see that sociopathic behavior of the top 1% of men and project it onto all men. So
Yeah, but the thing is, like,
they want every single female human to have equality to the 1% of men instead of, you know, ever seeing the humanity of the rest of the 99% of men.
it's well, they complain about the top 20% of men, being arrogant or being disrespectful or being unfaithful, and it's only because they allow them to do that. Like when it comes to the word of dating, men only get away with what women allow them to get away with. If like a man can sleep with 50 women, it's only because the women allowed him to sleep with them.
It's only because 50 women want him and insist on him doing that.
It's like if if women like flat out like as required commitment in exchange for sex like it used to be, like hookup culture and like I think like 80% of like infidelity would basically stop, at least on the men's side.
They want men who have the body and skills and prestige of Giga Chad, but the soul of the simpiest simp, basically.
I don't even know about that because I think at some point they get bored with him.
I mean, on some some of this is never going to be translatable. Like we're never going to get a 100% accurate model because frankly they don't even know where the boundaries are between one set of their logic and another set of their logic. So
Also, I don't think that they will ever answer these questions 100% honestly because women, being social creatures, are afraid of being, chastised or rejected. So they'll say what they believe to be the
well,
most acceptable.
there's that variable, and then there's the fact that a lot of them just don't know themselves well enough, and so they say what they think they want, even though their actual desires run contrary to what they nominally want in a lot of ways. I.e., I don't think it's they know they want the patriarchy and they say the opposite because of social pressure. I think it's they just don't know that they want those things. And so they pursue the thing they think they want and are stunned into silence when that thing makes them miserable. Because in their heads they're thinking, well, this is what I'm this is what I nominally want. Why isn't it making me happy? It couldn't possibly be that any other perspectives of people I dislike have any contributions to make here because they obviously are as evil as I say they are. And we can never address that issue ever. Could we ever say that maybe men's desire to protect and provide for women is their desire to serve those women? No, because we all on some level have been told the oppressor oppressed narrative, whether it's the extremely feminist or the extremely traditionalist gynocentrist. They all somehow believe that women are sentimentally valuable by default and men are only valuable as glorified appliances slash bodyguards. And if they fail in either of those two options, they aren't even men. They're called boys. They're called not real men. TM. They're called, as I coined, the blank male human. Um,
Getting back to the movie for a little bit, it just got me thinking about the manipulation of the Barbies against the Kens to make them turn on each other. And it just like if I was watching that film, like try to take something away from that scene, what I would take away is that it is perfectly all right to be cruel, manipulative, and unabashedly evil, so long as you are going to obtain power at the end of it.
I I don't know honestly. There's certainly an argument for that interpretation of this. It's certainly not the interpretation that they intended, but as we just covered, this movie only makes sense if you view it in the exact opposite lens that it was intended. It only makes sense if Ken is a well-meaning but bumbling hero, and Barbie is an unself-aware villain and a narcissist. If you allow for those two things to be a thing, this movie makes entire sense. But if you view it as the filmmakers and the like narrative of the movie want you to view it, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Like, I wonder how many people read this script and gave it a pass before it finally got the okay, because this just seems awful to me.
Yeah, no, it's probably the most heavy-handed feminist propaganda piece in a blockbuster I have ever seen, and that includes Birds of Prey, that includes Ghostbusters, 2016, that includes Velma, that includes the New Warriors, like it includes She-Hulk. It's even more heavy-handed than that. The only thing I will give the movie is on a technical level, aside from all of the logic problems and the narrative problems and the we're saying the exact opposite of the thing we're saying without knowing we're saying it thing. This movie is very, very technically proficient. Like it's very well shot. It's very beautiful. The acting is extremely good. Um, like all of the best resources were employed in the making of this thing. It's just the thing they were making was the antimatter of cinema.
Like, do you remember those like 3D animated Barbie movies that came out for kids? They made about like 2 dozen of them.
The direct to video ones, yes, I very much do remember those because funny story, and y'all can knock your allotted gay jokes into the chamber because you're gonna need them in a second. Um, I I loved the Barbie Swan Lake movie when I was a kid, to the point that when I eventually saw the actual Swan Lake ballet years later, I remembered the plot basically from the Barbie the Barbie version. And again, arm all of the gay joke nukes. Put your best gay jokes in the comments, kids. Like I know how obviously gay this makes me, but kick
Like,
the
let me
rest of
ask you. I didn't see any of them. I just know that they exist. But were any of were they better films than this?
On a technical level, no. On a storytelling and like character consistency and world building level, yes.
I mean, obviously they're not going to be as good technically as this film because it's a major Hollywood
Yeah,
blockbuster.
but it's but actually yes. It also managed to make, and again, I realize I am very, very gay, and this is probably the or confirmation of it, but it made Barbie extremely sympathetic as a character in those movies. Now, granted, I've only I think seen three of those. I saw the Barbie Nutcracker, I saw the Barbie Rapunzel, and I saw the Barbie Swan Lake. Barbie Swan Lake was my favorite one, which again probably indicated some things. But but yeah, in every single one, they told a unique and interesting story. Wherein Barbie was basically an actress, and the Barbie sort of lore was a template. But but they all were very they actually were fairly decent self-contained versions of their respective source material. Like as a Rapunzel adaptation, it wasn't bad. As a Nutcracker adaptation, it wasn't bad. And again, like I say, I really enjoyed the Swan Lake adaptation when I was a kid.
So let me ask, who exactly do you think they were making this movie for? Because it certainly wasn't for children. The people
Middle
who actually play with the Barbies.
middle management, women who have at least a minor in gender studies and are going through a midlife crisis, and
How
or
about
and or same in journalism in the journo class,
yeah, that would about sum it up for me because I can't imagine how this movie could be entertaining to children like at all.
unless they see Ken as the good guy, which which brings like, even though this is a propaganda piece par excellence, I can't bring myself to hate it because I think it will inadvertently red pill people, just like the Johnny Depp trial did.
Let me ask you something. Besides the sliver of a spine he gets at the end, does the character of Ken or any of the Kens have anything noble or heroic about them at all?
Um, Apart from their sympathetic vulnerabilities, no, not really.
So,
I
like,
mean, I mean, unless you find the like stereotypical dude bro like Logan Paul isms when they institute the Kendom, sympathetic or heroic.
you see,
I
one
will
of these
say there are
books.
moments where I will say there are moments where Ken exhibits like a Superman style naivete to him. Like, again, the like just childlike innocence with which he engages with the things he likes are endearing.
I hate their displayed idea of men, obtain power and just immediately transformed into a douche.
Well, no, I think it's supposed to be the masculinity he's emulating is the douchey kind. It's not that the power turns him into a douche.
No, quick.
And
So only being a douche,
even
or
while
they
he's
are.
ruling over the kingdom, he's not being douchey. Like, he when Barbie expresses her issues with this, he's surprised. He thought she would like this.
Okay, but here's the well, one. Just was he? Well, I have two questions. One, was he just the douche, or were all the Kens douches?
Well, they were all frat bro stereotypes. I wouldn't, and again, I wouldn't necessarily call them like, they're not mean. They're just kind of obliviously they're kind of obliviously adopting like the sort of Andrew Tate slash Roosh V kind of the Logan Paul, or like, I'm trying to think of some other simulacra of what they kind of do with the Kent in this movie, like, but they're adopting it in a very innocent, very performative way, and they still are trying to use it to impress their Barbies. Like, they're like, see, look at how powerful we are. Isn't that so good? Aren't Haven't we earned some appreciation and so forth? Like, again, it's a very like, look, I did a thing. Can I get some appreciation for doing a thing? Kind of vibe. It's actually
And
a
you
little
said
bit
the
adorable.
you said the women, the Barbies, were happy in this version of the world.
Yes, the Barbie, the main character Barbie, asks a bunch of the previously specialized Barbies, and and well, they're nominally supposed to be brainwashed, and the responses are basically, I actually enjoy this because for the first time in forever, I don't have to work hard or think, and also my Kens are looking more attractive to me in ways I never thought they could.
Okay, I'm sorry, but you have to give it to the douche because the douche made an effective society. Like, even if he is a douche, if he's leading and doing well in creating a world that is satisfying the vast majority of the population,
And like,
then
he's
follow the
still
douche. The
not
douche is
evil throughout the course of this. It's literally like, well, all my feminist research on the patriarchy suggests that this is what women want, so I'm going to do it for my Barbie, basically, and also for my own like self actualization. It's kind of sweet, actually.
like, I don't even care if he is an ass. He's still, like, by every observable measure in this movie, correct.
And of course, the extra irony of the fact of, if one even nominally purple pilled Ken is able to overthrow your glorious utopian matriarchy, Barbies, maybe the glorious utopian matriarchy wasn't working all that well. If it can literally be supplanted by one dude in one day,
You know,
just telling people things he learned when he was on a
you
trip.
know what the Ken should do, Dalton? They should retake society, but also make it slightly more militarized, and then put an army outpost at the location of the portal so nobody gets through again.
I mean, I do kind of wonder what would happen if the Kens crossed over with the G.I. Joe universe, because presumably that's also a thing in this universe. Um, like if there was if every like toy that or object that is like mass produced and given like personification and personhood in the minds of people becomes like a tulpa in their own pocket dimension, then surely there must be a G.I. Joe or Transformers universe that the Kens could go to.
I look forward to the invasion of Barbie World by Darth Vader and Palpatine, so they can talk them out of their evil imperialist ways with talks of patriarchy, and then get force choked.
No, it would have to be Asajj Ventress or Mother Talzin because, of course, matriarchal. They at least have to have a nominal female figurehead to sell it to the Barbies.
Here's the thing, Dalton. Darth Vader does not need your agreement to obey him. You will obey him, or you will suffer.
Yeah, except that the Barbies kind of control the laws of physics in Barbie world, so I'm not sure the Force would carry over.
I mean, he had. I mean, he has the Force. I mean, apparently the Force is within each individual, according to the laws of Star Wars. So unless they can alter his blood,
That I mean,
and we know the Force can break the laws of
I
physics.
I think we're putting more thought into the intricacies of this world building than the writers did.
Oh,
But
definitely,
it's
absolutely. But
still good. It's still better fan fiction than what we actually got in the thing. But the upshot is, um, I
wait, hold on.
officially
I just had a brilliant idea. I just had a brilliant idea.
uh
Imagine the world crosses over with He-Man, and he just walks in like a Giga Chad.
just just like the Barbies all just collectively line up and start worshiping him. Which especially given how like kind of like gay in terms of personality He-Man is, that would probably be funny. Like He-Man would basically become an honorary Ken.
Yes, and he could give the glorious purpose to lead them to in the fight against Skeletor.
And yeah, and I honestly think He-Man would basically be like a big brother to the Kens. Like he would be like nerd or like he would be a mentor figure like in the way that when alpha bullshit isn't attached to the term alpha male, like in the way an actual like alpha male would be.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining He-Man and Ryan Gosling's Ken, the main Ken, um just hanging out in whatever Barbie World has in place of a bar, and just being absolute bros.
All right. We could wrap this up because we've been talking for over an hour about the Barbie movie.
I again, I have my gay card, and I swear to you, this movie is a men's rights movie. So don't pillory us in effigy, and don't shame E either. This was my idea.
Yeah, this is also a men's art movie, and also apparently an unintentional comedy.
Well, no, it's supposed to be a comedy. It's just that all the jokes
Not in the
are
way they expected.
feminist lecturing, and all of the actual humor comes from the fact that they feminist so hard they inadvertently emerade.
I call it an unintentional comedy because it's not supposed to be funny in the way they want you to find it funny.
It's funny for the exact opposite reason.
All right, everybody. I've been Mystery.
I have been Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator. We have been the Duality of Man and Ken's.
Bye, everybody.
Cheers, guys.